What's going on, everybody? Happy Monday. How was everyone's weekend? Shad Dale's here. Trade to Black, presented by Dutchie. Good to have you here. Michael Bronstein is going to join us in just a moment. Yes, we saw the news last week. We talked to Ryan Burke, president of Tyson 2.0. Michael Bronstein was also there. So we want to get his takeaways from last week's meeting in Harrisburg, the state capital in PA, and what the big takeaway was regarding adult use, and talk about some other things, including some of the stuff that we're reporting, some of the illegal product that is in PA, as much as 93%. That stat we outlined last Friday on the Trade to Black podcast. Why is this happening? And this control board is now going to be overseeing a lot of this stuff. So what does this mean for PA? And it could be a blueprint for other states to follow suit as more and more crackdowns, hopefully on these bad actors in the hemp industry, comes to fruition. Plus, we're going to look at Oregon right now. A federal agent staged a cannabis raid that turned into an immigration sweep. Interesting story. Probably some corrupt stuff going on behind the scenes, as Steve Robinson outlined last week on the live stream with us, which is going on the West Coast. So some moving parts here in the cannabis industry. Market's relatively flat today. No surprise, as today is now Monday, November 3rd. And onwards and upwards as we sit here and try to be patient and wait for more news to come. And we'll be in Washington 2 weeks from today. The biggest names in the cannabis space will be there, along with some big political leaders. So hopefully we'll get some information and dialogue 2 weeks from today to give you guys all better insight on what we can expect next in this space. So let's welcome in AV here on a Monday. Can you hear us?
I can hear you. How's it going?
You can hear me.
It's good. Yeah.
Good to see you. That was a long opening.
Earnings week.
Thought I'd buy some time. Yes, actually, I brought all this stuff up and I forgot to mention the most important thing. It is earnings week, and we've got a busy, like they all report within a 2 to 3 days window.
Tomorrow's Chicago Atlantic, SNDL, IPR, Jushi, and Leaf. And then the next day is Aurora, True Leaf, Cresco, Scott's Miracle Grow, and Curaleaf.
A lot.
And then to round out the week, the companies that matter really on the 6th is MaryMed, TerraSend, and then Canopy Growth on Friday.
Village Farms
out the week.
Village Farms a week from today. Ascend Wellness a week from today. TerraSend, you said Thursday pre-market. Grow Generation is Thursday, November 6th post-market. And as you said, Curaleaf is Wednesday, November 5th.
Wednesday.
After market.
Wednesday we'll have George from Verano, Micah from Leaf Brands, and then Jim from Jushi on back to back. And then Thursday at 4:00 we have Boris confirmed, and I'm working on Ziad and Jason now.
Right. Good job. We've got some good people lined up this week, don't we? Charlie Back, we've all reached out to him too. So hopefully we can get him on Friday as well. So all the big dogs, including Verano, who posted obviously their earnings last week. But real quick, before we bring Michael Bronstein in, I want to talk about this. We begin news out of Oregon, where federal agents staged a cannabis raid that quietly turned into an immigration sweep, raising serious questions about sanctuary law violations and blurred enforcement lines between the DEA and ICE. So if you've been tracking federal enforcement trends, the stories out of Medford, Oregon, textbook case of mission creep, they call it. So it started as a DEA-led drug bust targeting Hemp Nova Life Tech Corp. It ended with 17 immigrant workers loaded onto a GEO group bus and transferred to ICE custody. Wow. What have you learned about this? And have you had any feedback regarding this story? Because this is clearly, as Steve Robinson, as I said off the top, told us last week, there's some illegal stuff going on behind the scenes, more than what people can really assume and really project. But it clearly seems like this was the case out west in Oregon because, like I said, a cannabis raid turning it into an immigration sweep.
Yeah, I mean, it's not surprising. There's TCOs up and down the coast as it relates to illicit cannabis.
Yeah.
Grows. I mean, it's a big problem. I don't think it's going to go away anytime soon. And you're probably going to find a positive correlation between illegal immigrants, criminals, and the illicit cannabis trade. And I mean, some of that is what's going to manifest itself within the hemp industry.
Yeah. Well, someone was just saying, shades of glass house. But this is happening everywhere, everybody. And you can bet your money that this obviously was not a breakdown of miscommunication. This seems like it was very strategic in what they were trying to do, don't you think? Can you hear me? Nope, he's gone. Hello. He can't hear me again.
I can hear you now.
Did you cut out there?
I was trying to figure out is it your connection or mine? Because I was just checking mine and it was up.
Interesting. Arns, give me a thumbs up in the private chat if you can hear me, but I'll continue talking. And yeah, as I was saying,
I can hear you loud and clear now.
This doesn't seem like broken communication. This seems like it was very strategic on behalf of ICE's part. But you think it's, well, put it this way. I don't know if the word term good is the right way to frame this, but if you're doing stuff illegal, it is good to see some of the stuff get cracked down, but it's more so an immigration process versus an actual cannabis raid, don't you think?
Well, it was led by DEA. So, I mean, I think the real emphasis was a cannabis raid on an illegal operation out there that was selling products into the hemp industry under the guise of THCA flower. It led with drugs and it wound up with immigration. But I think you're going to see overlap between these two organizations on a go forward basis. And this is going to be just a coming trend that they're going to be cleaning this shit up. Hopefully with the notion of bringing reform to the industry and regulating hemp products as well once and for all.
Yeah, well, it's good to see. All right, let's jump into this week's It's Now Time for Monday. And we always have the in-depth, long conversations, but a good one, I think, this week. And let's bring in Michael Bronstein, president of the American Trade Association for Cannabis and Hemp, to the podcast here to Monday. Good day, sir, and good to see you.
Good to see you.
How was your week last week? Because we spoke to Mr. Ryan Burke, president of Tyson 2.0. I know that you were, I think, with him at times last week at the state Senate in Harrisburg. Big takeaway for us was, look, adult use is not going to be dependent on what the federal government was, but we also got in kind of an indirect way. Burke was telling us that they would very much probably move a lot quicker, if I'm correct, if we indeed saw some sort of direction from the federal government on reform and how they view adult use. But do you agree with that? And again, why does that matter, truthfully? Because we're talking about rescheduling is one thing, which kind of opens up the door for a lot of the medical side across the country. And that's already passed in PA. So we're talking about adult use and recreational. But what was your take? And do you agree with some of that sentiment?
Yeah, it's a political consideration, that sentiment. So what'll happen with rescheduling, we all know the policy, and the audience knows the policy here, what's good about it, where it could go further. When this gets reported and when this happens, what will happen is people will report it as moving a step closer to legalization, irrespective of anything else, going from 1 to 3, opening up research, right? The most important thing is what it will, from a political context, is what it will say to people. And in Pennsylvania, you have Republican members of the Senate who would see the president taking a direction, which would be a clear directional signal,
right,
as to where the issue is going, which is why we see people who are, for prohibition be absolutely against rescheduling, even though rescheduling still keeps marijuana illegal at the federal level, right? And it keeps synthetic THC. It actually doesn't do anything for synthetic THC. If you look at what was written about it before, synthetic THC would remain a Schedule I substance. But I think that what you would see is you'll see a real movement in the state. And this was said by a number of different folks. A number of different Republicans in the state have been saying this privately for a while. I think last week we heard a lot of that it fundamentally would change their own politics and their decision-making around the legalization effort in Pennsylvania. So it's really a political consideration. It has nothing to do with the policy consideration. It's just very easy to point and say, all right, President Trump did this. I'm a supporter, and what say you public? Like, it gives a lot of political cover to folks if that moves.
Well, it's the disparity, as you've said before, where you look at adult use from the state level compared to the federal government, that it's still viewed, and it is not viewed, it is a Schedule 1 substance, which you've indicated lots of times in the past, Anthony, but that seems to be the hurdle right now. I would think for a lot of these policymakers is to move as far as passing, let's say, adult use, when on a federal level, this is still classified as a Schedule 1. And that probably is the reason why people are hesitant right now. But to your point, Michael, step in the right direction and one step closer to legalization if it were to be rescheduled. But anyways, Anthony, you're going to say something. Feel free to add.
Michael, we saw PA bring online the Cannabis Control Board in the last couple of weeks. We've seen Mike up in PA. How much closer is Pennsylvania to getting movement on the legalization or even their budget front?
So there's a lot of conversation that happened last week on the legalization effort. And I think that the Tyson visit put legalization front and center as a discussion point in Harrisburg. And the discussions that have happened in Harrisburg are much more considered now than they were a couple months ago, than they were 6 months ago, right? People are actually asking the policy questions that need to be asked around it because they know that at some point in the future, they're going to have to take a vote on this issue. I think that leadership of both parties knows that, because it's not just Republicans in the Senate. There are also policy concerns that have happened on the Democratic side with some of the policies that Democrats in the House have put forward. They put forward a legalization bill that legalized through a state store system. That has to be moved past. And so people have to get comfortable with what that policy looks like next. But at the negotiation table around the budget, there's been so much political hay that has been thrown around the budget. And there's currently, it's November 3rd. There was supposed to be a budget on June 30th. That didn't happen. The numbers that they're talking about right now on the budget are a lower number than, what the budget started as, which means that they're going to try to cobble together a budget without really creating a new revenue source, because they're already into the next budget period. Okay. That the conversation about the next budget is like literally starting.
Are you serious?
Right now? Like that's when it has to start happening in order to put the things in place. So there has been some discussion. All leadership has been meeting about this over the last week, over the budget. It's believed that they could come to agreement on like what would be called like a slim budget essentially over the next week. And then they would work on the revenue items that are not a part of that budget. They would work on the revenue items separately, which, would be, if they come to an agreement, that's sort of what their game plan, I think, is right now as they're at the table.
Yeah.
But they may not get to a budget. This thing could get blown up again. Right? We just don't.
What does that mean? I know on paper it says they may not get to a budget, but how does that work?
They sit in a room, they yell at each other.
Yeah.
And there's literally no budget, and folks can't there's no money coming in from the state for programs. So there's certain state programs that stop functioning. So that's the issue that's going on in the state. And the federal issue is compounding that, because the federal government obviously is not being funded right now. So when you have that, that's a recipe for disaster, which I think at the state level, it's way more untenable at the state level for folks politically than it is at the federal level, where they're kind of cobbling some stuff together, or there's a little bit more latitude around it, although not that much more latitude. We're about to see the SNAP benefit discussion go forward. But in the state, you're talking about counties not being funded, Schools have already started to take loans out against what they might get in the future.
No kidding.
From state funding. And county level governments have prepared for the contingencies of not receiving funding on time. And there are a lot of these social service organizations that could go under because they haven't agreed to baseline funding yet. It generally hurts more rural districts right now. I mean, it hurts everybody, but these rural districts, it's hurting too, because they don't have the ability to go out and get financing the way a county would in suburban Philadelphia or suburban Pittsburgh or Philadelphia, right? Because they operate much larger budgets and their credit facilities would look a little bit different with how they negotiate with how they could go to a bank. Mm-hmm. So they're more, they're more equipped to be able to deal with something like that. But these outlying counties and some of these service organizations
suffer the most
are having a problem.
So walk me through.
Is it safe to say that PA would get meaningful hemp reform and clamp down on the intoxicating hemp products that are in that market before they get adult use cannabis coming online?
Certainly, it's possible that could happen. The thing is that you've got Democrats. Democrats are interested in full legalization and addressing the issue at the same time. When you look at the governor's budget book all the way back in February now, the governor said that they wanted to deal with synthetic THC. And by the way, it was called synthetic THC in the budget book.
Good.
All right. That they want to deal with the proliferation of that. And they suggested that legalization would be a way to deal with the unregulated market. And I think that was a lot of folks missed that. At the time, or it hadn't been discussed at the time. So I think that the position that the governor has was laid out there, where they want legalization to be able to address this. The SB 49 bill, which moved last week out of committee and onto the Senate floor, it's unclear when that bill will receive a vote on the Senate floor. There's a thought that it could happen. They come back into session on the 17th of November. There's a thought that it could happen that week. There are thoughts about whether it will be amended, but the bill itself only sets up a regulatory commission. It sets up the independent commission, which is essentially the same independent commission that was in Senator Laughlin and Senator Street's original bill. So it basically lops off the adult use portion of the bill, creates the independent commission, removes the medical marijuana program from the Department of Health, puts it under the independent commission. So I think that in order to get to an independent commission, I don't think the Democrats would remove the medical program from the Department of Health without getting reasonable assurances that adult use legalization was on the way, or that they felt comfortable with slotting it under an independent commission to be able to do it. That said, I'm not sure that Republicans, and Senator Laughlin has said that this is not SB 49 is not a legalization bill.
Correct.
It's very hard to talk about hemp intoxicants and talk about the medical marijuana program without talking about legalization.
Right.
And I think that there's going to be a lot of discussion. There'll be a lot of discussion around that. But right now, that the bill about regulating hemp, it doesn't say how it's going to be regulated. I think that most folks in the state, in Pennsylvania, do not view this unregulated market as untenable, and they're colored by some of the things that have happened with other political issues in the state, like skill games, which has gotten completely out of control in the state to create some political, some political compromise on. I think that leaders are concerned about what's going on, especially with the rise of these products. We saw a grand jury report recently in Pennsylvania. We've seen lawsuits pop up over these products in Pennsylvania. We saw the state attorney general sign on to the federal letter about the addressing the Farm Bill loophole and the synthetic THC issue. So there's a lot of action. There's a lot of action around that. And Democrats still are pointing to the fact that legalization and regulation could help solve these issues.
Look at this billboard. So many comments, a lot of billboards on 95 in PA saying, go to New Jersey for cannabis. It's ridiculous. Is that really? Is there billboards in PA?
Oh, yeah.
That's wild. Yeah,
they're everywhere. There's like, if you go to like the bridges around.
They're not even hiding this. Like across state, going to a state, buying the product, and no one cares in this particular situation.
It's legal. It's legal. There's nothing to hide.
But if you're in PA, adult use. But hold on, if you live in PA and you drive to New Jersey, legally, can you drive back to PA with that weed? Can you do that?
No, you'd be crossing state. Yeah, you'd be crossing state lines. So you can't. Right. Yeah, you can't do that. And I hear that the Port Authority has a nice holding cell right at the bottom of the bridge for anybody who's tempted. Yeah. To anyone who's tempted to try to do that.
Sure.
They're not. Look, it's pretty clear. On New Jersey, and the governor said this himself, there are some dispensaries that are right on the border, 60-70% of the license plates that are pulled up into there have PA plates. Yeah, I just know from driving PA plates across state lines, they'll pull you over for just having PA plates in New Jersey. So you got to watch out for that too if you're going to do that.
Interesting. Well, they got a huge shopping mall in Monroe, Michigan, which is 10 minutes from the Ohio border. And the cost of weed in Michigan versus Ohio. Like, again, nobody's hiding behind this. But as you can imagine, these law officials, as they said before, we want to prioritize around more serious crimes, which is why a lot of these laws need to be modernized. Look, I don't know if you saw the story last week, but there was a grand jury report that found 93% of hemp products sold at smoke shops and gas stations were actually illegal marijuana. Surprise, surprise. So, we get a lot of people here asking questions about what this language could be in the Farm Bill. We saw some people from Anthony, you highlighted to me this morning that some people from the hemp side got their hands slapped big time from Senator Mitch McConnell about some misinformation that was posted online. I'd literally like to know, are the lobbying efforts getting stronger on the hemp side towards the federal government? Are you hearing any of that? Like, where does that sit? Because I did a video this morning and it's just like seem like they're pulling up their socks and ramping up their efforts to get through to the federal government. And if that is indeed the case, is this what's causing some delay and confusion on what next steps could be towards rescheduling?
I think from a rescheduling perspective, they're two separate items of what's going on in Congress versus what's going on around that discussion. In terms of the lobbying efforts, we've noticed, an uptick on lobbying. We do a lot of federal lobbying. We're probably one of the largest, players in this.
So what's your gut telling you right now then?
I think that they're trying to get at they're trying to get at a solution. I think that's the gut. I think that's the gut instinct. I think the thing that folks, and I read this too, where you saw in Marijuana Moment, there's a good interview, but also in some other media outlets, folks were trying to figure out, where the line is between what a hemp product is versus what a marijuana product is, because at the federal level, I think that they're recently coming into this discussion where they're seeing what's gone out in the marketplace. And I know it seems kind of wild because all of us here live it every day, and what we see out in the marketplace, and also what we've seen on a state by state basis. So the delays here right now are really, there's been a long discussion around this. We've seen language that was put into both the Republican, at first the Republican House Farm Bill language, then we saw it happen on the Senate side language, and then we saw language that was taken out on the Senate Agricultural Appropriations side as they were going through, but language remained in the House appropriations bill. So we actually have seen some active discussion around that. We've also seen Rand Paul propose some language. And then also there's been, some talk around from him about doing a study, but there was already a study that was done by NIH 2 years ago. So a lot of that is seen as sort of delaying, a delay tactic on the conversation. And I think the thing is that folks are getting pretty close to getting their hands around this at the federal level. And I think there's been a lot of discussion. We've seen bills introduced too. We've seen the Griffiths bill introduced, which, deals with a regulatory situation around it. We saw Wyden's bill, which Wyden's bill, I think, like it leaves a lot open. So I think that there's continues to be a discussion around this, and now you're hearing that it's really going to the highest levels of Congress right now.
Where do you think that discussion goes if that language for the hemp ban is taken out of the CR? Do you think it's just forgotten about and it's status quo? Hemp is going to just continue to do its thing. Cannabis is going to have to sit here and wait until Donald Trump makes a decision on rescheduling, and it's kind of just status quo again, and people forget about it?
I don't think anyone's going to forget about it. I mean, I think that the reality is that there are a couple different vehicles. This happens to be the appropriations vehicle, right? Yeah. So what happens if there's another farm bill? Like irrespective, I mean, there's going to be another farm bill at some point into the future.
You figure we keep saying.
Yeah,
we said that. We've been saying that for years now.
There is a farm bill discussion that's actively going on too. So
is there?
Yeah. And the question of regulation, I think the question of where that language falls in there is still going to be ongoing. I think that what you're seeing now is like, because you have appropriations, we've seen discussions around other bills on this. And it's really, I think that discussion really, to be honest, is just kind of getting, is just getting warmed up. Around that. So
when you say you have lobbying efforts towards the federal government, where do you think your information is going to? Like, who is reading this? Who's consuming this? What's the efforts? Because, I think people just want to have an understanding as to like who is being communicated, educated, and aware of the messages that are being put through to these people. And what is the message?
Well, I think that it's pretty simple. I mean, those who are dealing with right now, we're dealing with, in the appropriations process, you're dealing with the appropriations committee and the relevant folks that are on there. I mean, I think that what we've also seen is that, on the agriculture side with the farm bill, you're dealing with that, the agriculture committees. A lot of the things that are going on in Congress are actually happening through appropriations because of the dysfunction of Congress. And also, just kind of because folks can't seem to agree on broader issues in Congress in general. I mean, and that's sort of what we've sort of seen part and parcel. And I think that the idea right now that that synthetic THC was legalized somehow under the 2018 Farm Bill is really is really something that has to be discussed, and also the idea of THCA, because we already have. I mean, there's a rule in USDA about measuring by total THC, and so we already have. It's more of a question of how folks are interpreting these laws and what it is they'll need to go forward. I think that if there's going to be a discussion at the federal level, the way that there is in all these states, about what constitutes an adult use product. And I think that that's a natural conversation to be having right now.
Well, we need this government shutdown to end. One person that you and I have met, I assume that you were with Mike Tyson last week, correct?
That is correct.
Describe the mood of Harrisburg when he walked in to the building? I assume that they were probably like pretty excited to meet Mike, but when, the first initial meet and greet is gone, and the whole topic there is to talk about adult use cannabis. What would you describe the mood when they were speaking to you, speaking to Mike, like the whole team? Like, what would you best describe it as?
There was a buzz. There was a buzz around the Capitol from his visit, in ways that I kind of wasn't necessarily anticipating. I'm around a lot of folks who are well known or famous. I mean, I worked for prime ministers. I worked for, I worked in presidential administrations. And there's like sort of that buzz. This was like a different type of buzz. This was very much a celebrity excitement and buzz around the building.
Yeah, I bet.
And like different people were really engaging with Mr. Tyson when he was in. They in that, like, there was sort of this aura, I think, and more of a receptiveness to listen and know that he was in there on this issue, and to hear that story. Like, it hit folks who aren't used to talking about this issue or necessarily didn't want to talk about this issue. There was one senator who was like a swing senator, on who I would consider swing on some of these votes. He was like a huge boxing fan, and like showed up, and wanted to take pictures and autograph, all that stuff. And they're talking about it. And like all these folks who are considering it, or they haven't necessarily come out one way or the other, but they know that they're going to have to do it. It really was a moment where people were engaged, and they were engaging. And I think that the story that he told was powerful to legislators. So it was really interesting from that perspective, because people knew he was in the building. There wasn't anyone who didn't know he was there. And then people are like, well, why is he here? And they're like, oh, he's here to discuss legalization. And so there were a lot of folks who would not normally discuss legalization. They're ready to discuss legalization.
Mm-hmm. But just because we're increasing their propensity to, let's say, join the conversation, like, how do we change their point of view to enable action? Mm-hmm. Because we've been talking about this for years now. Like, cannabis is all around us. People understand now, or should understand thoroughly, that it's not some evil. And obviously everything is just chipping away and chipping away and chipping away and adding to the calculus of changing those opinions. But at what point do we actually see and get action from people that aren't currently looking at the world through the lenses that we are?
It's votes. I mean, he was there really to convince votes from the legislature, and people who were a maybe or a no, right? Knocking those folks into the yes column. So when that vote happens, folks are ready for it. Remember, we've already seen a legalization vote in Pennsylvania. You're likely to see another vote on the regulation of hemp, as well as having this control board, right? Those are actually important votes to get to a legalization framework. And that those votes could happen in 2 weeks.
Was Tyson speaking about hemp? And if so, are there any of the talking points around that conversation that you could share with us?
Yeah, I mean, they did speak, I think, broadly about comprehensive cannabis regulation, which included the regulation of THC, and there was a discussion around hemp and what's going on in the state, and the need to create a regulatory control board in Pennsylvania. And remember, the regulatory control board, I think this is progress. The regulatory control board, I mean, that's being proposed by Republicans. Okay.
Yeah.
Like, we have to remember that. And they're voting on that first. So we had a legalization vote in the House. We're now going to have a regulatory board vote in the Senate sometime soon, maybe when they get back, as soon as the week of November 17th. All right. And then they take that bill, and at that point it would go over to the House for consideration. And the House can talk about, they could talk about that bill however they want. All right. I think the governor is going to have something to say about that bill.
Yeah.
But just remember, we're talking about comprehensive cannabis regulation. All right. So that substantially moves the conversation forward when you have Republicans voting
Yep.
on that. This isn't one of those bills where it's like, at least it's not right now, like one of those bills that we saw like in Texas or something,
Right.
or, in another state where, all right, now we're talking about, the milligram limits, or we're doing this, or we're doing that. That's not that bill right now. Okay. Right now, the bill is set up the board. Okay. And enough folks are like, all right, let's set up the board. Let's get the regulations rolling. I mean, this thing could move out of the Senate in a huge bipartisan way.
Did you say you did get a chance to speak with Governor Shapiro last week while you were there?
Did I get a chance to speak?
Yeah.
I did. I do. I've spoken to him, and I was on his transition team, and I do have the opportunity to speak to the governor on occasion.
But if it was up to him, this would be done already.
Done.
If we're being honest, I mean, if Governor Shapiro had the power to do this, I firmly believe that we would have had adult use cannabis in Pennsylvania years ago. At this point.
I agree. I think the sentiment, and especially what the governor has expressed publicly, but also he's very frustrated, in my view, that cannabis hasn't been legalized yet.
Absolutely.
He wants it as part of his budget. I think that he's advocated heavily for cannabis legalization in the state, and he's continuing to do that. And I think that his I think that his advocacy is helpful.
It's mind-blowing to think the amount of tax dollars that this industry would produce, the amount of people that are in favor for it, and what it would do for the economy as well. And I can sit here firsthand that the world doesn't change all that much once you legalize something like this, because I live in an area that it's like that. And think of all the money that could be generated. And it's just wild to think of how something so simple continues. I don't want to sit here and say, yes, there's steps in the right direction, but it should not be this complicated. And that is just the reality. But
yeah. And look, I don't pretend to speak for the governor, but what I know, because I think the governor has been pretty clear himself on this issue.
Very.
I think he's left no room for daylight about what he thinks about this.
Yeah.
Which is why I'm, commenting on this, but I think that he's ready to, he's been ready to do this. And I think that the state is moving now in a direction where we can get regulation.
Speaking on the topic of governors, wow, got some big races this week. New York, saw the debate with Cuomo and how do I pronounce the gentleman's name? Mamdani. Yes, and he has openly said that he has purchased. I think actually he'd be good for cannabis, but I'm not going to go down that road getting into.
You don't have to be good. You don't have to be good for cannabis in New York.
True. Yeah, good point.
Where did he say he purchased the product from? Did anyone ask?
He did say from a legal store. When asked,
he said from a legal online store.
Yeah, and all eyes on Virginia, because I'm sure there's a lot of cannabis investors would be like to ordering up, as what Guap said earlier, a double bacon span burger hopefully tomorrow, and hopefully she wins. But we will see how that goes. But all eyes point to her winning that race, and if so, how soon will adult use be implemented in VA? Would that be a January 1, 2026 timeline, you think, or later?
It would probably be later.
Yeah,
it's the first half.
Yeah,
first half of 2026.
It'd be the first half of the year, because the swearing in wouldn't happen until.
Regardless, it's like once we have even a timeline as to when that would happen, that would be a huge win for the space. But need new markets to go online, and that would be a big win.
That's the anticipation. I think everybody is. Yeah, I think everybody is thinking that that's what we anticipate. It's obviously been a long road in Virginia, but here's the deal, guys. It's been a long road everywhere recently. These states, the states that we're in, were not first adopters, and getting them through to the finish line is harder, longer, more challenging with some of the politics that are on the ground. And
look at Ohio.
Yeah.
And we saw a bill. I mean, we've even seen a bill this week on Ohio where they couldn't get to hemp regulations There was a pretty bad bill that was proposed. I think not really well thought out. There's talk now about what to do about it in Ohio. We're seeing these things creep up, and it's almost like we're relitigating legalization. I think that one of the issues that we have right now in cannabis and hemp more generally is that it's causing the relitigation of legalization as a whole.
Correct.
And that is not helpful to the industry. We don't want that. Okay. So we're seeing ballot initiatives now that are being put on in state that could walk some of the state level programs backwards. Right. And that's a problem. Let's not pretend that's not a problem. And the industry is fighting with one hand behind its back because of these tax policies that we see at the federal level. But also there's only so much ground that people can cover and they can fight. It's like it's like creating another theater of war. You really should only be fighting you should only really be fighting with one front line at a time. But what we're seeing multiple.
Yeah.
Multiple.
Yeah.
I'll let you run, but before I go, if you had 60 seconds in front of President Trump, what would you say to him? How to fix hemp, how to fix cannabis? What would it be?
Reschedule, legalize. Do that right now. Fix the tax position that's going on in the industry. That's tax policy is regulatory policy.
And the hemp industry, what would you say with that?
With the hemp industry, I think full legalization allows for a vibrant industry. I don't think that that we should have. I think that there needs to be parity between the industries, and I think that also that'll help out industrial hemp. I think that it'll help out the other facets of the hemp market. The more that those things are linked to a synthetic THC or THCA flower market, the worse that it is for the hemp industry in general. And so those things need to be bifurcated, and federal regulation shouldn't leave anybody behind.
If anybody wants to get a hold of you or wants support in any kind of direction, where can they get a hold of you?
info@attach.org. I'm assured that email address is actively monitored. And if you don't write anything crazy, it'll probably get forwarded to me. And if you write something crazy, it'll probably get forwarded twice. It'll actually get forwarded to our entire team is usually the way it works. So be careful.
Listen, always good catching up with you. Another week closer, but we look forward to seeing you at your event in Vegas. Don't look now, but what is that? November 3rd. We got 30 days. That'll be fun. But
30 days to Vegas, gentlemen.
Also, will we see you in Washington 2 weeks from today?
I might actually. I am booked to be down there. I'm just not certain if I'm going to make that trip. I may have to be somewhere else. Okay. But right now I'm going.
Well, if you're there, we'll see you there.
Hopefully it's up in Harrisburg. If you're not,
that's where I may wind up being. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. All right, sir. Good catching up with you. Insider's Edge presented by Attach, the American Trade Association for Cannabis and Hemp, with Michael Bronstein. Thank you, sir. We'll see you back here next Monday. Okay.
Looking forward to it.
All right. Well, like what he said at the very end, if you had a chance for 60 seconds with President Trump, which I'm sure you can agree, but all in all, it was good to see that his tours at Harrisburg last week, was just trying to get votes. And for the people that were on the fence, it seems like it was very influential for Mike to be there. But to your point, how does this get into action? And I know it's very frustrating because that is the question we keep asking over and over and over again, right?
Correct. How do we get action?
Yep.
Which is what we very much so need.
Yeah. Guap, I stole your liner for Spanberger. I used it, but I think it's out of a scale 1 to 10. I'd give it maybe a 3. But look,
I'd say it's a 3. Yeah.
You go with 3. I thought that was even generous. And yes, David Benz, thank you. That is a stitched in hoodie, as I would quick reminding people.
Kind of like I would give the Blue Jays World Series performance a 3.
All those
going to take the knife and just
those poor Torontonians. I thought about you when they lost, because I'm just like, you're probably just sitting there laughing, that evil laugh.
It's great. It's fantastic. There's nothing I like more than seeing a Canadian team lose a professional sports championship. The Canadian contingent, I love you all, but you've left such a bad taste in my mouth.
You're a hypocrite then, because you were saying all the Canadian, but you were saying all the Canadian. Yes, there you go. All right, so you're just jabbing it back to them. I get it. But man, what a game! Yeah. What a game it was. I can't.
Great game.
You can't put that in a script. That's the closest it could ever become. I think the only thing I would have liked to have seen is the Dodgers win a game like that at home, because you have to have the crowd reaction in it. It just makes it a lot much more epic. But all in all, you can't ask for a better game. That trap.
Oh, it's a great world. It's the best World Series. Best World Series in a decade, by far.
Decade.
That world, probably more. Yeah.
Last World Series I remember being that close, it was epic, was 1991, and it was between Minnesota and Atlanta. And the two teams the previous year finished dead last of their division, so they called it the worst to first World Series, and that went 7 games. And it was played at the old Metrodome where the Vikings used to play. They played baseball in there, and it was so loud, and they'd have these white towels. But Jack Morris was the starter for the Minnesota Twins. And think about how times have changed. He pitched 10 innings, no bullpen, 10 innings of shutout baseball. That's a pitcher. But, and think about it. The other pitcher matched him. It was 0-0 going to the bottom of the 10th. Game finished 1-0. But yeah, it was a heck of a game. Good for baseball. That's for sure. And I love Big Poppy. Big Poppy is great on that desk. I think he was doing shots after every single post game. But yeah, he's a real. If you haven't seen that comeback of the Red Sox in 2003 on Netflix, while the Yankees were getting tight and wearing their suits and no facial hair, the Red Sox were drinking shots of Jack Daniels before going into the game, and they played pretty loose, which is why they came back from that 3-0 deficit. But all right, ask everybody. So again, quick reminder: are we going live tomorrow at 4:00? No, I thought we were. Thursday? Okay, we just got 4 o'clock. We have some pre-records ready to roll tomorrow, and then we'll have those out later this week. And yes, got a full back-to-back schedule with Leaf Brands, and then who are the other two again on Wednesday?
Verano, Leaf Brands, and Jushi. And then Thursday with Boris. We just heard back from the Cresco team, and they are not able to won't be available this earnings season. So I will keep you guys posted on when that could happen next. And then further from that, we will just heard back from the Village Farms team. They're trying to get on for next week. So we'll keep you guys all posted on some of the new interviews that we set up, but got to reach out to Anthony Cogniglio as well and get him on as well. But that's it for today. AV, thank you. Everybody enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks for checking in. We'll see you back here all Wednesday, and keep your eyes peeled for the latest earnings from a lot of the big companies. It's a big week on the earnings front, and we'll kind of go from there. And feel free to stay connected and ask any questions when we have a lot of these executives on later this week. Look forward to it. Okay. And for AV, I'm Shad. We'll see you back here Wednesday at 4:00. TDR Traded Black podcast presented by Dutchie. Thanks, everyone. Hey, everyone. Thanks again for watching here today. Listen, if you're getting value from us here at TDR, make sure to check us out at TDR Plus. It's our exclusive membership community. Why? Well, you'll see CEO interviews that go beyond business, showing a personal side that you won't find anywhere else, including the biggest names in the industry. Plus, you'll get insights from analysts and day traders on where the industry's headed, both short-term and long-term, and a direct chat group with our team. It's only $7 a month, just 25 cents a day, and it helps support everything we do here at TDR. If you want to join, just click the join button below and become a TDR Plus member today. And once again, a big thank you for being part of our community. So that's it for today. And again, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.